Our next speaker comes from a different side of the aisle. We opened with Mr. Morlock, who is a Republican state senator, and we will be moving on to Gloria Romero, who was two times a Democrat state senator in California and is actually was the Senate Democrat majority leader. She's always been a leader in education reform and currently now is an educator and a director of a charter school in Orange County. So I would now like to present to you Gloria Romero.
Good afternoon. Good to be with all of you. Thank you for the invitation. And my participation, I think, really should give us hope as well that this really should be a nonpartisan issue. I do want to, though, emphasize that as we go forward, and let's say it is in the electoral arena, that that it's important then to pick what is the fight. As we talk about educational choice, my recommendation would strongly be to disassociate from things pertaining to sexuality, to sex education, to climate change, you name it. Because what I have learned in terms of counting votes is that really focus. We've got to be laser sharp, no matter how we agree or disagree. Probably if we were to have a discussion on, let's say, climate change, I might disagree with maybe each and every one of you, but I'm united with you on looking at how we provide for opportunity, especially for, I believe, disadvantaged children. So that's my hope as we message as we go forward. Let me say, however, as well, that as we gather today, I think that even amidst hope, a National School Choice Week has passed, and guess what's on the horizon? Groundhog Day, the infamous groundhog that's going to be the predictor for the next 6 weeks of winter. I think let's be a little bit sober and talk about what this means as well and sort of use it as a guide, because quite frankly, we have all been there, done that. And yet here we are, year after year, groundhog after groundhog, sort of in the same situation, basically having a monopoly of public education, which has failed California students and certainly the taxpayers of the state of California. So just a couple of quick points before we start. Ultimately, public education, it's half, almost half of the state budget in California. We find that if we take a look at who are we literally talking about, we're talking about 6 million school children in California. Over half of these are Latino students. And when I was a senator in the legislature, I represented, of course, East Los Angeles. So the vast majority of my constituents attended these quote unquote neighborhood schools that year after year, groundhog after groundhog, we could see were failing our students. That's why I approach school choice as more of a civil rights issue. And I think as we carry the message forward, it's not only the message, but it's messengers and in which language we speak as well. Because if we're not speaking Spanish to our families, we're leaving out 54% of those 6.2 million children. So let's think about how we get our messaging. Latinos are very likely to support school choice. Very pleased that a recent Friedman Foundation report found that like 71% of Latino families support school choice, and we need to build on that. But I think, again, too, with a strong coalition that focuses on what is the fight we are in. There's a reason that Latinos are very strongly supportive and see it as the key to the American dream. We find that Latinos are much more likely to be concentrated in high poverty schools. And being trapped in a high poverty school, it's not just about socioeconomic status, but as we've seen, for example, from the Williams case in Los Angeles Unified, this translates to largely, again, to what are the numbers of high qualified, experienced teachers that are teaching in these high poverty schools. We're taking a look at the dance of the lemons that my colleague, Senator Morlock, had talked about earlier, where basically the lousiest of the lousiest teachers, because of the teacher contracts, basically get shuffled into high poverty communities, typically Black and brown, where there's a feeling that parents will not understand and will not fight back. We're looking at lower end facilities as well. So those are some of the issues that we find and that Latinos are very cognizant about. So when we talk about school choice, I think it's imperative that we always make sure that people understand it's a civil rights fight that ultimately is going on. When we take a look at the academic outcomes, and I'm not even going to go through all of it because we don't have time in 10 minutes on another Groundhog Day. Basically, we find in looking at the California Assessment of Academic Student Progress, the CASP outcomes. Basically, if you take a look at even the 11th graders, we find that only, check this out, only 19% of Latino students in 11th grade are assessed to be ready in math to go into college. 19%. How do you even dream of becoming a doctor or dream of becoming a tax preparer as we take a look at taxes ahead? 47% are assessed to be ready for English language arts, college level. And those are only Latino students. We could take a look at other students as well, because this affects all of us. But I want to really focus on looking at it as a civil rights issue. So, what can we do? Because the call to action was on the eve of Groundhog Day, when we assemble once again, what can we do? And I think that there is both peril and promise. And I want to just lay out a couple of points. There's always the legislative angle. And one would think, having been a legislator, that I would put that at the top of the list. Sadly, I do not. I do not believe that a legislative strategy in California is going to be a successful option. Although I will tell you that there's positive news out of, I believe it was Iowa, whose state Senate just a few days ago actually passed an opportunity scholarship measure that's going forward. However, once again, I think we have to look at the messaging there, because this is exactly what we are going to hear in California with any type of electoral measure. They are hearing that there's no oversight in the measure, that it's taking public money to give to private education. They've even call it money laundering. Okay, kind of like doing a sleight of hand. And of course, the old P word, it's privatization of public education. So no surprise, Groundhog Day, the same language. Although the money laundering was a new one for me. I thought that was very creative, for this next Groundhog Day coming up. So in California, we can kind of keep going forward, putting bills in. I know I fought to get open enrollment. I think that sometimes incremental change is positive, and we did get some of that. There's more to be done. At the federal level, with the new Biden administration, no hope with respect to looking at a federal measure overall. So I think with all, and I'm a Democrat, I speak as a Democrat, but these are the perils. With all Democratic control in DC, I would just say forget about it in terms of looking at legislation coming forward. But to me, I have always looked at the courts. And I really believe we have not sufficiently utilized the courts. Yes, there's the electoral strategy, and let's talk about that. But I still believe our best foot forward is going forward with the courts. And right now, before the courts get packed, because as we know, there's already a commission to study the formation of the Supreme Court. I would urge us to look at where are the cases looking for challenges to the Blaine Act. In California, we've got two. With a new Catholic president, Joe Biden, I think this is the time to really partner with the archdiocese, the faith-based communities, to make appeals to President Biden, to talk about the outright discriminatory impact and the derogatory treatment of families and individuals, really just based on the Catholicism. But I think we should try to look at that. The Blaine Act, we're not going to do away with legislatively. It's got to be a court challenge. And in California, we've got a really heavy challenge because there are two. But I do think that it's important to look to see where are we. I really do think that is the strongest hope. And I would be looking forward to partnering with where are we either beginning a new case or really looking to where in the pipeline to the Supreme Court can we find these cases. Now, what about the possibility of the electoral arena? Anybody who's been in the electoral arena, and I know Senator Morlock spoke about this as well, this is not for the faint of heart. We can talk till we're blue in the face about myths and realities about school choice. I'm going to tell you right now, as we get ready for Groundhog Day, that doesn't matter a whole lot. In politics, perception is reality. And that's what we've got to really figure out again to messaging, contact, messengers overall. How do we drive the perception even as we tackle the myths and the realities to get a message going forward? So I think we've got to look at that as far as how we go. Much of this depends upon how an opportunity scholarship is crafted. I personally would not have written something that is encompassing to each and every student. And you might say, wait a minute, Gloria, that's not fair to all students. Again, to how do we sell the message fighting against the perception in politics? Quite frankly, had my druthers prevailed, I would have chosen something to go with the most vulnerable, to write an opportunity scholarship that goes to the heart of a civil rights fight, because that's where I think we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck and the biggest coalition, as opposed to just come one, come all. I would predict that there's going to be a great deal of opposition to simply giving school choice to Gavin Newsom's family, for example. So I think we have to think about how is it written and what do we do? The other thing that I think we have to look at is the timing of when this comes about. As I've learned in the world of politics, sometimes your chance for success is less about who you are and what else is on the ballot. Might this be in a recall election of this governor? I'm not sure what the timing is. There are a lot of families who are very upset about Gavin Newsom. And as a Democrat, I signed the recall petition because I am very unhappy with his science, which is really about political science. It's not the real science that has guided his decision making on keeping schools closed and small businesses feeling the heat. So I don't want to take up too much more time. We'll have conversation as we go forward. But I do want to, in closing, say that as we approach another Groundhog Day, let's think about both the promise of where we've come to, but the peril that we face. Crafting our message as a civil rights fight, not simply as one that is easily going to be turned into by the California Teachers Association, California School Boards Association, the entire political apparatus of the state of California, and all the money that feeds those coffers into a money laundering scheme and another effort for privatization. So I look forward to being in these trenches with you, figuring this out. But in closing, I would say that once again, I do believe that our best options are looking at getting this to the current Supreme Court as soon as possible. That's where I believe our biggest hope is on yet another Groundhog Day. So thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to conversation as we go forward.
Thank you very much, Gloria, for your insightful comments. It was certainly encouraging, and I am looking forward to working with you in the future in terms of crafting some messaging that can be heard across the community. So I really appreciate your good work. I know some of the people you work with, and I can't be more pleased to hear that you're with us. So thank you so very much.